this is, by the way, what you're watching, what you're seeing right now is the kind of bend around Big Thunder, right?
Right.
That line that you're seeing people in right there, that's actually for Genie Plus Return. That's how crazy it has gotten. For some reason, I have no idea. But for some reason, Genie Plus is, I mean, it is working on a metric that is insane from FastPass. FastPass previously, maybe it would take up, 50% of a ride's capacity, maybe a little bit over, and the ratios to let people in would be like 80-20 or so. So 80 guests through FastPass, and 20 guests through standby, and that they would kind of work on those ratios. But we're seeing such high ratios. I mean, we're seeing like 99-1, maybe even over that. And then on top of that, we're also seeing that they're really saturating these hours, these intervals with Genie Plus returns in a way that they've never done before. I remember in Disneyland in old visits, pre 2020. I remember with Max Pass, you buying in the service, and maybe it was like maybe one or two, and Space Mountain's gone. Or Indiana Jones is gone, because you're taking capacity, the available capacity of that attraction per hour, and you're dedicating a portion of that to Max Pass, or in this case, Genie Plus. They're not necessarily doing that anymore. I'm seeing on the app that, people are still able to get return times for big time attractions, maybe just like 2 hours away. And that is playing all kinds of havoc with the operations of this park, and I'll show you this. This line here was 70 minutes at the time that that line was photoed right there, and Big Thunder ended up breaking down. So now you have, I believe, the hourly capacity of Big Thunder is about 2,500 people an hour. So if you have a 70-minute line, you have 2,500 people in that line that have to now go somewhere else. And then you have all those Genie Plus people that have to go somewhere else. And they might either hang on to that Genie Plus, or they might redeem that in some other attraction. And capacity, has to come from somewhere. And that drives havoc to those attractions, whether it be Haunted Mansion or Indiana Jones or anything nearby. And so now you've just got this kind of chaos occurring in the parks right now. And that's why I think you're seeing, okay, New Orleans Square, this situation, this cannot work. This cannot work for us long term. We have to fix this. And you're seeing this kind of, response. That's just an overcorrection. It's I've never seen operations like this at the parks before, ever.
Well, the thing too now is like, because it's so like monetized.
Yes.
I don't think Disney ever wants to go back. You know what I'm saying? Like because like with the Genie Plus thing, they're making money now in an area where they never made a dime.
Of course. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So now why would they ever go back? Like you see all the huge crowd of people in the Genie Plus line. They all paid. These are people who all paid to be in that line. Like Disney is like, oh, we're fine.
Yeah. I agree, but then the incentivization structure is also altered, right? So the incentivization is not to have the most efficient attraction; it's actually to increase Genie Plus sales. So, hey, maybe we don't get 4 trains on Big Thunder. Maybe 3 or 2 is optimal in order to sell the Genie Plus, and It just snowballs. It just snowballs. The monster's reawoken. Go ahead.
I think the worst part about it is that this is here to stay. Like because the parks are becoming more and more crowded. People like myself rely on Genie Plus to kind of skip those lines and skip the crowds and kind of just like keep it moving, because you don't want to waste most of your day in line. And unfortunately, I'm paying for it. I think I paid the last time I went. I didn't. So this is the difference between Disneyland and Disney World. Whereas in Disneyland, I feel like I can sit and wait in these lines that they'll go by really quickly, whether Genie Plus is here or not. But in Disney World, I feel like the crowds have doubled, and it's like Genie Plus was a necessity. I needed it in order to not wait in these long lines, in order to kind of get, to kind of utilize my time well and do more, because low-key you'd be standing and wasting most of your time in line, and you'd probably do like 4 or 5 rides without Genie Plus alone, and that includes eating and shopping and meeting characters, stuff like that. So I feel like it's going back to New Orleans. It's just the what's the word? Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. The construction is needed. There we go. The construction is needed. Now, I have a question. Do you think that the retheming in New Orleans Square is going to happen anywhere else because of the influx of customers, and to kind of like narrow out pathways and create so it won't create as much traffic in area? You know what I mean? Because you just showed the picture from Big Thunder Mountain. Do you think they're going to, kind of keep that construction going just to kind of open up and create more space type of thing? You know what I mean?
That's an interesting question, Ka. And actually, I think you might be on something with that, because I think that, I mean, I think it is sort of a domino effect. I think they probably will address other areas of the park. I mean, Disneyland started to do like this Project Stardust, leading up to
Star Wars Galaxy's Edge's opening.
Right. Galaxy's Edge opening. But I could definitely see them like kind of addressing other areas that haven't been touched yet and sort of reconfiguring because of this issue. And you mentioned in your video, Ka, too, like, which was actually very interesting. You mentioned like how with Disneyland you were fine, like, and you mentioned it just now too, but like in your video you mentioned like on your channel how you were getting through these lines no problem, but in Florida, like Genie Plus became really like a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Like in order to even just kind of like to get on rides, like you needed it. That's fascinating to me.
It's and I don't know if it's the app. I don't know if it's like, because I don't know if you guys know about, some people were like, oh, they're inflating time so people could buy Genie Plus and stuff like that. Whereas I thought that was the case until I actually went to Disney World, and I was like, yeah, no, they're not. I mean, obviously with certain rides, probably they'll say 50 minutes. It's actually 30 minutes. But some of the heavy hitter attractions, like I think I did Slinky Dog Dash, and this was when I didn't even want to buy Genie Plus. I was like, I don't need it. I'm thinking more of Disneyland stable. I don't need this. It's going to go by pretty quickly. We waited in line for almost 2 hours. 2 hours without it. And I think it said about 100 or 90-minute wait. It said a 90-minute wait, and I waited 2 hours. And mind you, like I said, I was with teenagers in my video. I was with two teens, and I knew they were going to be impatient, and they were. And I'm just like, the line never ended. Mind you, the ride didn't even shut down. It was ongoing. Everything was working completely fine. It just literally took 2 hours, to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm caving in, and I'm going to buy Genie Plus. And that's how they're creating. That's where they get their revenue. That's where they're getting their money from. And they're like, oh, this is a success. They don't watch these videos. Like, I mean, the higher ups, they don't watch these videos, and they don't see like, oh, this is a lot of money. This is it's just creating more money for them. And I get it, because of the pandemic. They need to kind of, get their ball rolling, and they've taken out all the free things, and now we got to pay for them, and we're going to do it. Unfortunately, because since if we want a better experience, we're going to pay for it, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head, Ka. And like you said, like the higher ups, they don't watch the videos, and honestly, they probably don't do the experience in the parks like we do, right?
Exactly.
Like Bob Chapek isn't like sitting there on his app trying to get like reservations for Big Thunder.
Not at all.
And that's a huge problem.
I know, my phone kept dying. I'm like, I didn't want to be on my phone all the time. So my phone kept like the battery kept being used, and I'm like, I don't want to be on this phone looking at rides. What's next? I just want to go. Like with fast passes, I knew that this is coming up. All right, scan my magic band. I'm in it. I got it next, and that was kind of it. And it just, there's such a huge difference. I don't understand what the differences between Genie Plus and fast passes is, and why. The inflation time, like the times are just so bad, but I don't know what's going on with this. I personally am just not a big fan of the system.
I think I can add some meat on these bones here. It's interesting because initially, yes, we were getting maybe some inflated times from people who were experiencing it firsthand. But as you said, Kingdakha, that has changed, and it's interesting that you say you give your experience, because that's an experience that is consistent with what I'm hearing on the ground as of right now. Yeah. I think it's a never evolving thing. I think they are kind of they are kind of tweaking the system as it goes along. And what we're hearing now is because these ratios are so high. Remember the ratios of like, hey, 99 guests for every single one person standby. Because they're so high, these attractions are if you're in standby, that line is moving to a crawl because of how many people they have to facilitate for Genie Plus. And again, if they're not taking raw numbers from these hours as they go up, that creates even more of an issue. And then if the attraction breaks down and you're losing that capacity, but you're still selling that as part of Genie Plus, that's also a bigger issue. And I think that's why your time was indicative of, hey, it said 90 minutes, but it was actually 2 hours, because it's that ratio. It's that person at the end that is determining, okay, how many Genie Plus people are going through versus standby. And when Genie Plus, when you're selling that, right, and that expectation is, hey, this is going to be a fast service, then there's even more onus or pressure on that cast member to let those people go, as many as possible. And as far as like getting rid of Genie Plus, it's never going away. I mean, this is going to be the new normal as we go on here, because it's now baked into the cake of these quarterly earnings reports. You cannot earn less revenue from quarter to quarter. I mean, Chapek definitely right now cannot afford that. So this is what's going forward. I just wish, though, that they would show some restraint with it, have some hard caps, have, maybe even make the service more expensive in order to reduce access to it, because right now it's just way oversaturated. It's way too easy.
I completely agree with that. Unfortunately, I think I said that in my head when I was walking around the Hollywood Studios. I'm like, I think I'd rather pay more, especially if I'm going to get access to all rides, because the fact that we have to pay for Genie Plus on top of the e-ticket rides, we have to pay extra for it. Like they were really milking me. I'm like, my gosh, I came here with a set budget and I just completely went over budget. I'm like, forget this. I'm just going to pay for it. I don't really care anymore, because I knew that if we, like I said, over and over, if I waited in these lines, I wouldn't get much done. And they got me. Disney really got me. And I would do it again, unfortunately. Not by free will, but because I feel like I would have to. So.
Yeah, and I think Disney understands that dynamic, and that's kind of what they're kind of banking on. Some of the crowd patterns that we see are consistent with that. They're letting in a little bit more people on, so it's like, oh, okay, I really do have to buy in order to get ahead. I told people before with MaxPass, whatever your ticket price was, just add on $15 a day to do it, right? And I think that same advice right now, I would still advise, like, hey, if you're gonna go, just know that your ticket is $20 more. You don't know right now, but your ticket is $20 more per day because of this service.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I actually had this conversation with my fiance the other day. Her parents are from Vietnam, and they obviously haven't been to Disneyland. Like, I mean, they went like a long time ago, but they haven't been recently. And I talked to her about this. Like I said, like, if we bring your parents, we got to pony up and do the Genie Plus thing, because it's like, this is like kind of like a once in a lifetime, or at the very least a once in a decade kind of thing. And Disney is really banking on that. Disney is like, oh yeah. They want you to be like for me personally, like I got a Magic Key. I'm at the parks like once a month, I'm not gonna spend money on Rise of the Resistance. But like if my fiance's parents come, and they're not regulars, it's a special experience for them once in a few years or once in a decade, then I'm going to spend the money for Rise of the Resistance. I want them to get on this ride. And that's the brilliance from a business aspect for Disney in regards to this program, is that now you're like, man, they're selling you. They're selling you.
And the two teenagers that I went with, it was their first time at all 4 parks. Well, at all 3 parks. I think they both went to Magic Kingdom. But like I said, it was their first time. And you have that expectation of, okay, we're going into Disney World. You want the best experience for them, and you want to do everything that you can. So, of course, if you're a first timer, you're going to spend that money. Me, if I went by myself, I would sit there and wait in those lines, because I don't really feel like like you said, we go often. Why would I pay for that just to, if that's something we can do on a rate? I don't mind waiting. I really don't. Especially if they're the lines aren't that bad and then they're moving quickly. Because pre-Genie Plus in Disney World, I think I went last September, we didn't have it. We didn't need it. The lines, I think we waited in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in Hollywood Studios for wait time was, I want to say 60, 65 minutes. It felt less than that. I stood there, I waited. There was no complaining. There was no Genie Plus, so it's not like I couldn't do anything about it anyway. But it just flowed well, and then it was like, all right, on to the next one. We went to I think I did have a for Rise of the Resistance was a reservation because it was free. That was free at the time, and I woke up super early to get it. But it was like, you know what? I think I'd rather have that than pay the 15 on top of the 10 or when it was 15 on top of the 15 and paying the. It's just a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.